All right, let's get ready to rat in my Science-C here. We're just going to do some background footage while I talk about some things. I probably should cover up the chat, though. I don't want anybody seeing the corporation or alliance chat, so we're going to cover that up. And, of course, we don't want them to know what system we're in because, they might try to hunt me down or something, so we'll cover that up. And, the system does show. The system shows over there where the Stargate is, so we'll take care of that. And, I don't want to show off my build. Nope, definitely don't want to show off the build that I'm using. They could use that against me. And you know what? Let's hide the implant too, because I don't want them to know what implant we're doing. And let's check out the planetary here. Oh, no, I don't want them to know where my planetary is. We're going to have to cover that side of the screen up in case I open that up during the coverage here. And you know what? I really don't even want people to know I have a Science-C. So let's just cover it up. You know what? Let's just cover it all up. Okay, there we go. Now we can rat. Hello pilots, and welcome back to another Eve Echoes video. I am Gromeyer, and today I'm going to be going over something that has happened that has been causing drama and discussion all across New Eden. If you haven't been on the Eve Echoes general discussion on their Discord or on Reddit to the Eve Echoes Reddit page, or you haven't happened to catch Rambo's podcast over the weekend, we're going to be talking about the 5% cheater meme that's been going around and discussions about specific groups cheating and SRP. Now, if you are completely burnt out on this topic and you just don't want to hear about it anymore, I totally understand because it has been going around all over the place and everybody's been talking about it for the last week or so. But I decided to go ahead and make a video. This is going to be pretty much my own summarization and opinion for anybody who hasn't caught all the information yet and who wants my side or my take on the events that have been going on, especially because I've been putting out so many videos about botting in this game. This is kind of the same or similar topic to that. In the background for this video, you're just going to see a recording of my first trip into the new Malpais region. This is a no local region that has drones for you to kill and get some loot from, but at the time of recording this, you were only allowed to stay there for 1 hour. I think they've extended it to 2 hours now, but I don't have a whole lot of incentive to go to those zones because I found them very empty and very challenging. Malpai, similar to the Kalevala region, not really meant for solo content. You can go there for a little bit and get a little bit of ISK, but you're oftentimes better off just staying in your home soft space and grinding out there. It's a lot safer, and the ISK rewards are very similar as well. If you do want to take a group in to handle this kind of content, it's still very challenging content, and the ISK split that you end up having to do for the amount of people you take in, to me, it doesn't really make sense ISK per hour for these regions, especially because of the increased risk of not having a local list. I think the developers of this game have kind of gotten it backwards, where they've developed nullsec to have a local list, so you get a warning if somebody's coming and you can dock up, and they've had these new regions pop up where there is no local list, but the rewards are not really comparable to nullsec regions. In my opinion, I'd kind of like that to be flipped. I'd like nullsec to have no local list because you have a lot more backup, being able to dock at your own citadel, being able to have allies nearby, and having these new regions have a local list. Therefore, you have kind of an early warning system to kind of keep yourself safe and go out there in smaller groups or solo. But that's just my opinion. That's my own personal take on it. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, even though there was some discussions about removing the local list from nullsec. I think with all the additions of these new drone regions having no local, that's going to be where the developers are taking that direction. If you want to play in an area that has no local, you go to these new drone regions. And if you want to play in something a little bit more safe, then you will be in nullsec. It's kind of backwards logic to me, but I'm not making the game, so. Regardless, that will be in the background for this video, but our main topic that I want to touch on is the big battle between TROG and AOA that happened last week. This is going to be over 100 supers that were in this battle, and everybody's been talking about it because there's some strong controversy that took place after the battle regarding cheating or sinking accusations. Now, there is something I want to be 100% clear of up front. I was not there in game. I'm not part of an alliance that was there in game. All of this that I've gotten was information pulled off of Discord, pulled off of messages that people sent me, a little bit of things from YouTube, Reddit, and of course Rambo's podcast. So this is all information that I have gathered and been told that I'm just reporting. So I wasn't actually in person. But if any of the facts are wrong from this battles, then I apologize. I have done a little bit of research and I've had a lot of stuff sent to me, but sometimes when people send things to you, it's not always 100% accurate, or it could be possibly biased in some way. But for this, I'm going to be 100% neutral and just say, look, this happened. So the story pretty much goes, and I'm going to summarize this. The Alliance TROG brought approximately 30 supers to fight an AOA group with over 100 supers. I don't know who got there first. I don't know who engaged who first. All I know is those were the approximate numbers. There could have been more from one side or the other. And of course, as you would expect with that big of a number difference, AOA did completely dominate that battle. I don't think that they lost anything very valuable. I do know that TROG did lose some supers. Reports have told me it's about 11 supers, but I haven't really looked into the exact number. So it was a pretty one-sided battle overall, and AOA ended up coming out on top for the victory. Now, the controversy comes afterwards because there were people in the TROG Alliance who ended up filing reports against AOA for sinking behavior and wanted them to be investigated for this kind of action.
Suspicious.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's weird.
I think it's no secret to anybody who has played this game for any amount of time that the AOA Alliance and people who are affiliated with it have a lot of bots that are operating out in nullsec to do PvE ratting and warp away tactics when you enter local. So there's scripts set up. There's a lot of that activity already going on. I don't know if they had evidence that this happened during the battle or if they just filed the report just for the game to go ahead and do a background check on it, but the report was filed by the TROG Alliance to check on the AOA members who participated in this fight. So shortly after that report was filed, somebody got some information or intel that there were in fact supers confirmed to be sinking their ships during the battle. Now they started talking a lot of stuff on the Eve Echoes general Discord, and it led to kind of a chaotic reaction. Because the reports had not been officially confirmed by NetEase itself, a couple of the NetEase developers or moderators on that Discord started shutting people down, muting them, giving them temporary mutes, and basically trying to end the conversation before it got out of hand. So that's not really what the discussion was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about scripters, but it soon turned into people going over the top, asking for SRP, people saying, some derogatory comments, going back and forth, a little bit of trolling, and it just kind of got a little bit too chaotic. So the moderators did what they could to try and shut that conversation down.
Shut up! You shut up! I'm so fucking scared right now, you shut up!
In so doing that, they kind of overstepped a little bit, in my opinion, and they started banning people for simple phrases. So, of course, that naturally escalated the tensions of the conversation even more, and more hostilities started being directed towards the developers, towards the moderators for this Discord. Meanwhile, in the background, the TROG players who were filing for SRP to try and get their ships replaced from this behavior were getting told by customer service that there were indications that sinking was going on in that battle. Now, while the initial response from customer service was that the super pilots would get their ships back because they did find activity that was against the terms of service in that battle going on, a secondary message was later sent saying that they did not qualify for the reimbursement of that. And it's unclear if it's because they didn't meet the minimum amount of insurance you need to apply for that. So like you would have to claim the super with your current insurance value and then they would replace the insurance, or if they just decided that they changed their minds, that they weren't going to go ahead and give out those supers or reimburse those supers from that battle after all. The message was then forwarded to the development team for further review. Of course, this caused more chaos and back and forth activity going on the general Discord. People were upset that they weren't going to be reimbursed, even though they were shown to have been killed or damaged in the fight against people who were breaking the terms of service by using syncing. And I'm not talking about proof that a YouTuber put out there. I'm not talking about player accusations. I'm talking about NetEase customer service itself came back and said this account and this account broke the terms of service in that battle by using scripts or some kind of syncing. So for some clarification, one of the lead developers, Cloud, comes onto the Discord and says, don't worry guys, I'm going to post the number of cheaters and their penalties from last night. I'll let you know in a future update. Fast forward a little bit to that update, and Cloud puts out an official statement in which he specifically highlights the 2 pilots that were involved, the account numbers and all the information for them and what they did. They did a discontinuous third-party tool. So I don't really know what that translates from, but it's basically a third-party tool that's used to fly more than one ship at once. So in other words, a common term for that would be syncing of accounts or syncing ships. The players who were involved or took damage from those ships can apply for IP reimbursement through NetEase if they file a ticket and so on and so forth. The big deal here is that one pilot that was found breaking the terms of service was fined 40 billion ISK for the violation, and the other pilot was fined 80 billion ISK for the violation.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And that is a big talking point that we want to touch on for this. Because according to the terms of service of this game, if you are caught syncing or using any kind of third-party tools, it should result in an automatic ban of your account. That has been the terms of service since the game came out, and it continues to be in the terms of service today. So now we are left in a situation in which players were reported for breaking the terms of service. It was investigated fully by the game developers. They came back with specific accounts that were indeed participating in breaking the terms of service, but instead of enabling or enacting the punishment in which the game itself has published for these actions, they've decided to issue an ISK fine or an in-game currency fine instead. Now, I believe that the reason why they decided to go this route is because they had just put out a message in the last patch about starting to fine players who were caught breaking the terms of service. That included monetization of ISK fines, 40 billion for first violation, 80 billion for second violation, etc., etc. So they got that kind of mixed up here. Instead of following their terms of service, which is automatic ban for participating in these things, they basically updated their terms of service without changing any of the wording by putting this into the latest patch notes of an increased fine for this activity. And the problem is that you now have 2 different sources for what the punishment is for this behavior. Now, when asked why it was an ISK punishment and not an automatic ban, one of the main reasons that the developers gave was that it was because it was less than 5% of the total damage of the battle.
What? What the fuck?
So their reasoning was because these people who were considered cheating or who were syncing accounts during that fight did less than 5% of the total damage in that fight, they didn't really feel like it deserved an SRP for those ships, and they also didn't apparently feel like it deserved a ban, even though in the direct wording of their terms of service, it requires a ban if you're using third-party tools to activate more than one ship at a time. Now, that's where I want to end the discussion about reclaiming the ships that were lost. A lot of people keep going back and focusing on that's the main reason for reporting these players. I don't want to discuss that anymore because that's not the reason. We are reporting these players, or people are reporting these players, because they are breaking the terms of service and hurting the game. They're hurting it in PvE, and they're hurting it now in PvP. And everybody has kind of just known that this has been going on, but now that NetEase has literally looked into it and then came back and found evidence that it has happened, admitted it in a public discourse, and then said that they aren't going to ban the players for participating in this activity, people are understandably upset.
What? No, all right. I know that sounds bad.
The other thing that was kind of an insult was the fact that the first player got fined 40 billion ISK, the second player got fined 80 billion ISK, but it came out later that the total loot that was picked up and rewards for that fight was well over 500 billion ISK of a split. So it turns out it wasn't really that much of a punishment after all, and it was probably covered instantly as soon as those pilots logged back in. Because remember, they didn't punish them by locking out their accounts for any time. They didn't punish them from not being able to use any chat features or trade features. They just fined them in-game currency. And the other thing that I wanted to discuss about this is that they are fining super carrier pilots billions of ISK. if a pilot has a super carrier and is running PvE content, they are easily making 3 to 5 billion ISK per day. So you're talking about a fine that is basically a week's worth of ISK that was probably initially automatically recovered by the alliance that won the fight anyway. Not to say it was a slap on the wrist is an insult to people who have ever been slapped on the wrist.
Jeez. Okay, it's just that simple.
I also want to add into the fact that while I am neutral and unbiased in this conversation, I will tell you straight up that I have held multiple bounty competitions for people finding botters, and the only regions that they have ever found botters, and I know people are all over the game, the only reports that have ever come in with people actually catching people who are botting while they're ratting their ships have been from AOA or adjacent territories, people who are aligned with the AOA alliance.
I mean, come on. I know you. You know you. And I know you know that I know you.
That is not to say that those botting players don't exist in other alliances. They do. We haven't caught them yet. That is not to say that every player in AOA or people who are aligned with AOA are botting or scripting. That's not true. There are definitely people who are in that alliance who are playing the game legit and who are caught up amongst this kind of activity. The problem now is that we are reaching a point in the game where when you find people in-game ISK, it doesn't matter. These accounts and these alliances have trillions saved up from long time of bad botting behavior. If a player is in a super carrier right now, running scripts in PvP to sync accounts to fight, I guarantee you they were already running bot farms to get PvE ratting and ISK that way for many, many months, if not years. So for the fine to be ISK makes no sense whatsoever. It doesn't discourage players from this kind of behavior. It doesn't prevent people from saying, hey, I want to do this too. All it does is lead people to believe that they can get away with it if they're rich enough. And again, I want to reiterate this because this has been a very big topic of conversation that has come up as a debate from people who are complaining about these fines being too low. Is they say that, oh, you're just crying about not getting your SRP for your ship. You're crying that you lost a ship in a PvP fight and you can't get it back for free. This has nothing to do with that. My conversation in this video has absolutely nothing to do with that talking point. I am stating as a fact, cheaters were caught breaking the game's rules and they weren't banned, even though the punishment established before cheating was banned. And I am a firm believer that if anybody dismisses this as not an issue with the game, or dismisses it as just people crying and trying to get something for free, you are not helping. Eve Echoes is heading in a direction where people are basically farming the game, owning the entire galaxy, and nothing will ever change. Territory won't change. People won't go out there in PvP because there's no point, and it'll just become a farming simulator. And I don't think that that was the intention of the game when it was created. This is supposed to be a territory control game. But now that we are having an entity that is growing so large, not just from their own actions and their own skill, but by breaking the terms of service that we have now proven happens, we are allowing that behavior to continue, and we are feeding the beast into becoming even more and more powerful to the point where you can't do anything about it. So what's the point of having a territory control game in which you can't control any territory? Now, to all those players who are actually playing the game legit, who are part of AOA or another group that is affiliated them, like ZRQ or NEEC or AOS or SOS, all of their blues, I would have to ask them, do you want to play in a game in which people cheat or use bots to constantly farm it and completely dominate? Is that the type of game that you want to play in? If the answer is yes, continue to do nothing. I get it. You want to have fun. You want to have a nice casual playing experience, and that's why you log in every day. However, to those players in those alliances, those players in those groups who enjoy PvP, who originally downloaded this game because they wanted to play a territory control game where you go out on adventures and have an experience, you're losing it. You're going to lose that if we continue down this road. Now, it is not all doom and gloom, as it does seem like someone on the development team is on our side to combat these bot issues. Cloud, one of the lead developers for Eve Echoes, this morning on Eve Echoes general Discord, posted that he's going to give out an in-game medal for those who mass report all this botting activity, botting and syncing. If you can report it directly to him en masse, like if you find over 10 players at a time, you can send those account numbers over to him directly on Discord. And if you just find one or two here or there, like we have been killing them for the bot bounty contest, you can just report those in game, and then he's going to be compiling a list, and the players who pretty much report the most or who do the best job at reporting them are going to be receiving an in-game medal. So we do have a screenshot of what that medal looks like for now, and we'll see how that goes, who receives it, and how long it takes to get that. But it is a good sign that at least somebody out there is looking out for the health of the game.
Now, when I say that I want these things, I mean that I want them, and I don't want to have to ask again.
Switching up gears, I do want to take this time to mention one of our fellow pilots who has tragically passed away in real life. Recently on Reddit, there was a post about player Silent Assassin who had a massive heart attack, was in the hospital for a couple of days, and they ended up disconnecting him from life support, and he tragically passed away. So our hearts go out to him. In game, we did have an event. A lot of the corporations and alliances around New Eden went ahead and lit Sino beacons so that we could show our support for him, for what he did for the game, and for his family that's probably struggling right now trying to deal with all this. Now, I didn't know him personally, but from what I'm hearing from everybody talking about him, reflecting back, he seemed like a really good player, and it's kind of unfortunate I didn't get a chance to meet him in game. But if you missed the Sino event and still want to show your report, just go ahead over to that Reddit post on the Eve Echoes Reddit. Go do a 07 on the tag there and just show your support there. If you want to do any donations to his family, because I know the medical bills are probably piling up here with all this, I'm going to put a link to the GoFundMe for him in the description of this video. Now you can see in the background, I do have a short video that I took of the Sino map as the beacons were being lit. You can see the level of participation, the level of care that's going into this from the Eve Echoes community. And I really like how we've all kind of banded together for this one thing, because at the end of the day, we're all just people. We're all just trying to log in and have fun and interact with each other. So that just kind of shows you the heart that this community actually does have. The last thing I want to touch on for this video is going to be kind of a channel update. This is for my YouTube channel, Growmeyer Games. Now, it's been about a year and a half that I've been doing this, and most of my content has reflected around solo PvP and going out there and looking for adventures, but I just wanted to give everybody kind of a heads up. You might notice that I haven't posted in about a month now, and it's going to kind of slow down from there. Basically, I'm having kind of a hard time finding content, finding opportunities to do solo PvP, some matchups, and things that I can record without just roaming around out there and then ended up getting blown up by a super carrier on a gate camp. And the other part of it is, despite the lack of content that I'm seeing, also having a lack of motivation to try and log in and find time in real life to play Eve Echoes. I've been really busy with work. I've been really enjoying spending more time with my family. We're playing a tabletop adventure now with my kids, and I've just been spending a lot more time doing other activities and being distracted and keeping myself out of the game. So if you don't see me roaming around out there, if you don't see me posting as sporadically as I was up to about once a week at one point, but I just wanted to give everybody a heads up. That's kind of where I'm at and where my mind is at, and as far as logging in. And I don't know if it's just me. I kind of get that feeling, that general impression from a lot of other players in the game right now. It's been a little bit quiet despite the kind of small wars that have popped up here and there. It's been very much this sense of, what do we do now? You know, what's next? And I think with Titans on the horizon and the new Super Vax or whatever it's going to be being rumored to come out, people are starting to wonder, do I want to continue to invest and go the big ship route? One of the problems with that's happening is that in order to achieve these big ships, you either have to spend hours and hours per day grinding your ISK to try and get it, or you have to drop real money on a ship in a box and try and get it that way. And when you buy a ship in a box, you actually don't have the IP to replace it if it gets lost. And that can cause really disgruntled player base when they end up losing this ship that they've invested either a lot of time or a lot of real money into, and then kind of wondering, where do we go from there, you know? the game design is kind of heading in a direction where you need bigger and bigger ships in order to compete, especially in PvP. And we've always been taught rule number one, don't undock what you can't afford to lose. Well, these ships are getting so big and so unaffordable that we don't even feel like we can undock for PvP anymore at this point. Back when it was just battleships, and maybe even just when carriers and dreadnoughts were introduced, it was a lot easier to kind of save up a little bit and then replace your losses if you do lose something in large scale PvP. And now we're kind of getting to this mentality where everybody just wants to log in, rad or mine, and then log out. And I also think that's why you see a lot of people shifting towards joining AOA, because they're such a PvE focused alliance that has made so much money they can afford to lose these big ships. So for me, at least, that's kind of where my mentality is. I don't see myself moving past Science C. I was actually even considering selling my Science C because I don't have time to use it to grind ISK. So I was like, why not just sell it and then take that money and fully invest it into my small ship projects? But that's kind of where my head's at as well. So it'll be interesting to see where the game goes from here, if they just continue to release bigger and bigger ships, if they continue to release things in a box that you can just purchase for real money, and how the player base responds to that. But going forward, you probably will see less solo PvP content from me as I find less and less fights, and I'll probably do some more things like this video where I just do a discussion, a roundtable on the events that are going on in EVE Echoes, maybe open it up for some ideas or some creative thinking of what we can do as a community to kind of come together and fight either the botting issues or the large-scale PvP war issues or something like that. Just kind of creative discussion to get the mind and the community talking. But just don't be upset if you see me post something from another game that I happen to find some interest in, or something new that you haven't seen me do before on the channel. I know primarily this channel is an EVE Echoes channel. That's all I've ever posted about, but it's not what I intended the channel to be about. It's supposed to be just casual mobile gaming. So I might get distracted by something in the future and post it on here just to kind of see how it does. And if you have any suggestions of things you want to see on my channel, just go ahead and send me a Discord message. My name, Gromire, Gromire, just like Gromire Games. And you can always reach out to me if you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything like that. I'm always open for discussion. If you are on my Discord for Gromire Games, don't worry, Discord's not going anywhere, and I'll still be there answering questions and communicating with the community. And if you haven't signed up yet for the Discord and you want to join another server, I'll put a link in the description below, and we can have a nice open conversation in my forums. But that'll wrap it up for this video. Appreciate your time listening to me ramble on about these issues. I know this was more of a talking, catching up kind of video, but I had to get it out there for all the information that's been going on, and people have been asking me to comment on some of the syncing issues that have been coming up as well. So go ahead and give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and leave a comment down below on your opinions on what's going on with the game and where it's headed. And until the next Gromire Games video, remember, fly safe, and most importantly, have fun.
Warp drive